everybody, I'm Misha, and today I have my co-adventurer Henry with me, and we were out for a walk in this beautiful little park in Longboat Key, Florida, and I found one of my absolutely favorite, just most beautiful coastal trees, Gumbo Limbo, and I thought I would introduce you to this beauty today. Gumbo Limbo is Ursaria cimaruba, and if that name sounds a little familiar, you may have heard of the torchwood family or the Bursariaceae. And that family is very famous because that is the group that holds both frankincense and myrrh. And if you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if Gumbo Limbo has similar properties, it absolutely does.
Some of the traditional medicinal uses for Gumbo Limbo are what we might expect to find from a tree that is related to frankincense and myrrh. Many of the indigenous tribes use this tree for inflammatory and pain issues, and much like myrrh, it's also very much indicated for issues of the mouth, so things like rotting teeth and any type of mouth sores or infections. It's probably no surprise, though, that one of this tree's most prevalent uses is in areas relating to skin. If we think about the doctrine of signatures and look at this bark, it really does look like dry, flaky, peeling skin. And so we would expect to be able to use it for things like rashes, acne, any type of topical issues like skin sores, measles, sunburn, even insect bites and rashes. This tree is also known to be the cure for any type of issues encountered with the poisonwood tree and is often found growing very close to the tree that can cause so many topical issues. Additional uses for this plant are related to draining heat. So we might see it used in situations like fever, dysentery, and even hot urinary issues where we need to drain the toxicity out. It's also considered to be a blood purifier and generally great for removing things from the system, even things like snake venom. While this plant would make a great addition to any herbal medica because of its medicinal benefits, it also has a number of practical uses as well. Throughout its home range, the Gumbo Limbo is also prized for its wood. The wood is sometimes used in light construction work, but it's also highly sought after as firewood because of all of those rich oils and resins in the wood that help it burn really brightly and really well. The tree is also sometimes used as a living fence row or a living hedgerow. It is said that you can take the branches off of the tree, lay them where they set, and brand new growth will come from the branch without any type of watering or planting being needed. This is another one of the legends about this tree that really lends it to that Bursariaceae family of being a heal-all medicine and one that promotes everlasting life. While the resin of this tree may not be as well known worldwide as frankincense and myrrh, it has similar properties. It's known to be incredibly sticky and has been used as a glue and also as a varnish. But much like frankincense and myrrh, it's also highly prized as an incense, and sometimes this tree is also known as the incense tree for that reason.
Now, the Gumbo Limbo is pretty easy to spot because it's got this beautiful coppery bark if it's a younger tree, and it also has that skin-like flakiness. So because of that easy to identify quality, there is a legend here in Southwest Florida that this tree was the favorite place for pirates and buccaneers and other ne'er-do-wells of the Caribbean seas to bury their treasure. Now to me, that seems a little hard to believe because right across from me, there's at least 2 more Gumbo Limbo trees, and this whole place where we're at today is completely covered in them. So I'm not quite sure how you'd find the perfect one. But to this day, treasure hunters do go along and you'll actually find depressions amongst the roots of these beauties where people have been looking for treasure. Now, of course, while there may have been 1 or 2 finds, the percentage of that is pretty dang low. So we do not want to encourage people to do that, especially not in a park or preserve, because all of those areas are protected. But it's pretty amazing to think that many, many years ago, some of our ancestors may have in fact used these trees for some uses that were a little bit unexpected. Gumbo Limbo trees are native to South Florida and areas around the Caribbean, so you might expect to find them in South America and some of the Caribbean islands as well. This tree is a huge part of our coastal communities. Come on, Henry. Let's take a look at another one. And oh, this way. And as you can see, you'll find them in a lot of places that are a little bit of the higher elevation. Here in Florida, these trees have kind of a fun name. We often call them the tourist tree because, as you can see, the bark is kind of red and peeling. And the old joke was that it is just like the skin of a tourist who maybe didn't know that they should use some sunscreen when they're out in the wilds of Florida. That bark is one of the easiest ways to identify this tree. It'll either be this beautiful copper color that you see on this tree here, or a little bit more gray with a hint of copper and oftentimes some green showing through, like you saw on the tree that I was standing by at the beginning of this video. That copper color is what gives this tree another one of its common names, the copperwood tree. And when it's a little bit younger, it's usually a little bit more coppery, and then as it gets older, the bark does turn a light gray. Another way to identify this tree is by its leaves. And these are a little bit older and they've been on the ground for a while, so they're not quite as, they've got some darkness on them from starting to decay. But you can see the leaves are opposite, which means that on the stem or the raceme, they are one right across from each other. And the leaf shape itself is really unique. It is very oval, but it has a really clear, let's see if I can show you, pointed tip on it. So any of the leaves that you see on this tree typically do have a very clear little, almost like a little spike or a unique point. So it's not just that the leaf, its tip itself is pointed, but it actually has almost like a little tooth coming off of it. So we've talked about Gumbo Limbo identification, and I mentioned that they have the coppery colored bark. Sometimes it's a little gray, but you usually see some of that copper, and you also usually see some of the peeling. But just like people, Gumbo Limbo and animals too, Gumbo Limbos can be pretty different. So the tree behind me, this beautiful gray color tree, is actually a Gumbo Limbo. And if you take a look at the bark, you'll still see a little bit of it peeling, but because it's so close to the water and it's also completely covered with lichens, the bark is expressing itself a little bit of a different way. That's why it's really great to also know that the leaves on this particular tree are opposite. So they're gonna be one right across from each other and they're compound. So that means that each little piece that comes out has multiple little like leaflets on it, and they end with one leaf at the tip. So that makes it really easy to identify. If you see the bark and you're not quite sure, you can always check out the leaves to get a better idea. Like a lot of coastal trees, including the mangroves that are growing right next to where we're at right here, the Gumbo Limbos are great helpers to build the coast and keep it safe from erosion, especially from storm surges from things like hurricanes and really any kind of tidal and wave action that might come up on especially high tides. If you look around me to this beauty, you can see the roots actually go out for quite a large radius around the tree. They expand past me, in front of me, and they go all the way back. And this is a really unique place to see it too, because this tree right here is pretty much preventing the edge of the trail from eroding into that little wetland of mangroves right there. So you can see the amazing structure that these roots provide to our coastal communities. If you'd like to see Gumbo Limbo trees in South Florida, you might expect to find them in a nature park or someplace that you'd have to travel and go out into the wilds. And they're definitely there, but it turns out they're also super popular to have just in our cities and towns. In fact, they might even be hiding in plain sight, like these that we found along the road in Sarasota, and they're pretty happy. This one is even in fruit right now. You can also find them in a lot of parks and all along the roadside as well, especially in areas where there has been initiatives to plant native trees. And so today in Southwest Florida, we find these trees in a number of our communities, from parks to roadsides. But it's also important to remember that humans have been living alongside this plant, working with it and benefiting from its many gifts over many, many years. It has uses medicinally, practically, and also spiritually, and it stands as a guardian of the forest and the coastlines throughout Southwest Florida and its entire home range. Thank you for joining me to meet Gumbo Limbo today, and I'll see you next time.